about the devil's tongue. It's an ugly one. To make people understand what is going on, if there's a language, and this is repeats now, but you have to, because we're building it, you have to kind of follow along and just let me introduce what it is. It's the language prior to Christ. It's the language prior to Christ. It's a big one, a huge, because if there's a language that killed billions of people, and I swear you're going to laugh when we look at it in the exhibit, it's the devil's tongue. Responsible even for possibly the towers falling down, 9/11. In 1998, it was released. Now, this is a true story. Hanna and there's three parties involved. There's Hanna, who's a turkologist. There's the brother, who's a turkologist. And then there's the Vatican. The brother, because the brother and sister are estranged siblings and they don't talk, which is really weird, but it's just a personality thing. The brother may be linked to the Vatican because they have their own societies and coded and all of that. They do, they do funny things. They work on a different timeline than when Hanna brought out the devil's tongue. So my brother was specializing in India and Thailand and all of that. Hanna was looking at it from a global perspective. Now, because Hanna and brother never even talked about it even once, it brought out red flags. But Hanna did that on purpose. Because Hanna was an eerie, quiet child up to the point when drugs were given. Now she simply talks in the third person. Like Hanna's a completely different person, but it's Hanna narrating. Let's go back to the devil's tongue. The timeline that my brother deals with the Vatican and military and entertainment, like that group that works with the devil's tongue, it is private because it fuels it. Like when I say the word Kanata, my brother might just pass it off because he's working with the Indian portion of it. See? And Indian means settlement. Settlement is, let's say, on average about 25,000 years old. Prior to that, it was nomadic. Hanna's dealing with the nomadic portion of it. If you can kind of get the drift of it. So there's two different timelines in the history of the devil's tongue. Today there's three. The modern version that is embedded in languages. Now, how can you benefit off the devil's tongue? You benefit all the time. Beyonce, Rihanna, Usher are all the devil's tongue. But it's the time period. Hanna is the globe's #1 for a reason. Because it's 1 out of 70 insane journals based off the devil's tongue. It's all different topics, but she broke a fuse. So when Turkish doctors got involved and they wanted to capitalize, or when Canadians got involved and they wanted to capitalize, and people want to capitalize off the devil's tongue, they can. But they have to let this woman finish. And this is why she's explaining certain things to you so you comprehend. Hanna deals with the nomadic portion of history, the shamanic portion, or the early human portion, or the hunter-gatherer position of the devil's tongue. Her brother deals predominantly with India's settlement portion. Both are extremely valuable, but they're two extremes. Hanna did all the black stuff. And when I say black, it's not just like language now. It's everything. It's insane. In fact, if you look at Beyonce's video, Git, 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 that is all Hanna, those shaded colors. Now, you see how important this woman is. What did these idiots do? The richest didn't have any clue on any of this, so they put her in an artificial setting, got too scared, ran to Australia, and gave it to people who didn't comprehend how valuable this person is. As she changed Jerusalem, she changed Canada, but there was a reason Hanna did that, and she blew a fuse. There's a reason she piggybacked technically off her brother. She kind of did indirectly, and put it into the Sun collection. It's because there was a war in Canada that started overseas with her Iraq ethics work. So it's one of the messiest stories in the course of history, and it doesn't help that Hanna is slightly off. So it goes back and forth, but there's something interesting. In the future, you may never see this again, but today you have a chance to see it via interactive or movie, but she's too busy fighting the extreme flamers that are either the James Bond or Jack the Rippers. And it's very unfortunate because they don't comprehend her value. But these people don't give a shit. They're looking at the dollar signs. And they're too busy pushing AI in the midst of the devil's tongue. It's a true story. And it's not about you wanting to see your early history. That's not the case. It's about how insane the story is and the purpose the Sun collection was done in the first place. It's to better the globe. And she had this video done way in 2009, 2010. So today is 2024. She's kind of elaborating on it. But it has been nothing but hell as they flung $2 at her and went to Australia to go surf. This is a real story, not realizing the blood that was pouring in Canada after Iraq. And, it's really lethal because these people don't care about UNESCO or culture or heritage or museums. They're looking at the dollar signs. Well, Hanna is sitting on the dollar signs, but they closed the courts in Canada. And even today, as I'm watching TV, you see this like one trophy given to Canada for swimming. That's the Europeans doing fraud to make Canadians feel better. They don't understand that there's a monster in Canada. And it's not about unleashing this monster. It's about conversion and trying to convince the public to do the 360 change. But even last night, how frustrating. I realized my desk is 10 times smaller. These are the challenges, because these people are not equipped on multicultural. These people are not equipped on anything other than the dollar sign. Well, what if they're left on this earth with a lot of money and no other networks? So see, history is important. Culture is important. The museums are important. Existence without harm to the environment is important. All these things were done for a reason. If it's man on man issue that is making them friggin' flip backwards, you want the support of women populace. Ladies, you need to trust me. What I'm designing protects women. With these men, you're going to be put back 10,000 years because of me. So you have to support 100% on this. And you have to let me finish the devil's exhibit. But I can't do that because China's in our bank account. They're just too arrogant right now. Take a guess why. The devil's tongue got a lot of them injured and killed. Same with some Indians. The devil's tongue got a lot of them injured and ill. And the beauty of this story is, now here is what's messed up. Hanna could say anything to these men for a different reason. She contains a lot of their heritage in her. She has white in her. She has native in her. She has Turkish in her. She has Turkic in her. She has Indian and Chinese in her through her womb, through her heritage. She has Sellanic Greek through her Ottoman history. She knows French. She was born to Islam. She migrated towards Alevi because they were more modern. Then she had 3 Christian mothers. I mean, if you want a messed up story, this is one of them. And guess what, people? It was not planned. So by subscribing, we get to do part 2. Or by putting pressure on these people to release our funding, you get a chance to see the past. We're talking humanity's ancestry through one connection called human that didn't exist before prior to Hanna, that had the whole UFT clapping in 2009 before we were hit with war in Canada. So this is all one woman. Everything you've seen probably in the last 20 years is one woman. And I don't mean to steal it from all these kids that the Indians pushed. But what they did with the money was not cool, because they got too nervous between the Turks and China. Now this is based off a true story. That's another thing. So let's go back to the devil's tongue. What is it? It's the language prior to Christ. And it is very important, and it's also biblical. So do support.